It's crazy how sometimes a game franchise can be successful for a minute just for a publisher to cannibalize its own brand by overexhausting its own existence. You guys know the games that we're talking about, the games that get milked for way more than a value that's actually offered there. We need to do a little bit of a deep dive here because both in the past and nowadays in the present, we see this constantly in the gaming industry. And I think a good example and possibly a cautionary tale to start this list off with, the Fable series? Okay, I know when we're talking about games that have been milked to death, you don't think of Fable right away, but I think as a starting point, before we get into some of the more obvious ones, this is a really interesting case study in itself. Fable 1 was hugely successful when it released on the original Xbox, and while it wasn't necessarily at levels of what Halo was, I think Microsoft maybe thought that Fable was much bigger and more successful than it actually ever was. And for Microsoft's sake, fortunately enough, Fable 1, 2, and 3 were all pretty successful games and were well loved by the community. And while we know Fable is eventually coming back, the decline of Fable and the huge hiatus that exists now is pretty much just because of the end result of a franchise getting squeezed for everything that it's potentially worth. You know, the first Fable came out in 2004. Everything's fine and dandy. They do an expansion called Fable The Lost Chapters a year later, and 2 years later, around the time that Fable 2 was getting ready to release, Fable 2 Pub Games released, which was an unrelated mini-game collection, essentially, that used like card games or board games as its main premise, released on the Xbox Live Arcade. Pub Games didn't really review all that well, getting about a 5 to 6 out of 10 from most outlets that reviewed the game. And this is just like the first instance of this, but it's an unnecessary negative score that now the Fable series was attached to, even if it was just an unrelated like little side arcade game released on Xbox. In the early 2010s, right around the time that Fable 3 was getting ready to release a few years later, Microsoft was trying to make this big push for Windows phones and was trying to get its own IPs on there so people would buy a Windows phone to experience, I don't know, Xbox exclusive spin-off games on the Windows phone. So like we had like the whole Halo Spartan Assault era, which was really weird. But even before that, they did Fable Coin Golf, which is just another like random thing that attached to the Fable title to it, which wasn't really necessary. Now, I don't think Fable Coin Golf or Fable Pub Games were like the final nail in the coffin for the Fable franchise. But it's pretty obvious at this point, Microsoft was starting to maybe squeeze Fable for every drip of popularity it had to try to, you know, market things beyond the main games. Nobody's opposed to game franchises spinning off if the spin-offs are good, but this wasn't like anything special. After Fable 3 though, things just got substantially worse for the Fable franchise. For the following years, there was no Fable 4 in development ever. That never was a thing, but there still was a steady flow of Fable-related titles being released, like Fable Heroes, this spin-off beat-em-up game that exists for some reason. Microsoft made Lionhead Studios work on Fable The Journey, which was like a little Fable adventure that was for the Kinect, and it's pretty much like this big, long, virtual ride, essentially. It's not a real Fable game. And this game probably burnt a lot of Fable fans who maybe bought a Kinect hoping to get a Fable experience like what was promised at E3, just to be disappointed because the game wasn't that fun. Then they released Fable Anniversary because Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary just came out and that was successful, so why shouldn't Fable get an anniversary title as well? I mean, it's fine to put it out in between years of main releases, but when there's no new release on the horizon, it just started to chip away at what was left of the Fable fanbase. Then we got Fable Fortune, a free-to-play Fable card game, which was all culminating to the big release of Fable Legends, which was supposed to come out in 2016. It would have been a big action role-playing game, and they canceled it right when the game was like almost ready for launch. They even had like a closed alpha, but no, they shut everything down. Even the studio got shut down. Okay, you know what? There are a ton of Star Wars games that have released over the course of gaming history. I mean, Star Wars has had some really iconic moments in gaming. And despite the fact that there are so many uses of the Star Wars IP in video games, and despite the fact that Star Wars video games are based off of the hugely successful medium that already exists in the movie form, I feel like Star Wars hasn't been excessively milked to death nearly as much as The Walking Dead, another video game IP that's adapted from a different medium. The Walking Dead has gone through the ringer in the short amount of time relatively compared to like Star Wars. The Walking Dead really hitting mainstream mainstream success in 2010 after the TV series started, and believe it or not, it was translated decently into an episodic story game in the Walking Dead Telltale Adventures. And I don't know if this just like opened up the gateway for either AMC or just like the Walking Dead series overall, like the intellectual property, to just go all out in just greenlighting anything and everything that wanted to use the Walking Dead name in a video game. But there is so much that has come out that has just been awful. I mean, the Telltale games were really good at the beginning, and I think they were still mostly strong throughout the whole story. They did 4 seasons of that and a Michonne spinoff. You guys might think I'm being too harsh, but a lot of you probably don't even realize how many Walking Dead games there are. A lot of games you've never even heard of, probably. Okay, there's the Walking Dead Destinies, which released last year that most of you probably know about. That game was panned by critics and fans alike, as it takes place during like the first 4 seasons of the show, where you can change the outcome of different events, but the gameplay itself is pretty clunky, and some of the character models look, I don't know, what is this? But also towards the end of last year, there was another Walking Dead game that a lot of people missed called The Walking Dead Betrayal, and it was like an 8-player co-op adventure where you have to hold off against zombies, but there's like social deception where you're supposed to betray other players, or there's a risk of that, and this game wasn't popular. It bombed right after it released, and developer Skybound Games announced that they were going to be stopping development of the game and removing it from Steam Early Access and refunding anybody who bought the game. So this was a very short-lived game. It made it 3 whole months, and that was it. There are 2 The Walking Dead VR game experiences, which the first one was actually kind of cool, but very short, and I'm assuming the second one was similarly the same type of experience, so a little overpriced for what's offered. There was Bridge Constructor, The Walking Dead, where you make bridges, and there was also The Walking Dead Survivors, a Walking Dead tower defense game. There was another VR game called The Walking Dead Onslaught, which had the characters after the events of The Walking Dead trying to rebuild Alexandria. Oh my god, does anyone else remember Overkill's The Walking Dead? This was supposed to be a huge deal. It had the studio behind Payday making a Walking Dead game. How could this go wrong? They had a really cool cinematic trailer that drummed up a lot of hype, and then the game was not good. It was very, very poorly made. It wasn't fun, and it was not at all like the experience that people were expecting or promised. The game ended up being discontinued 3 months after its release. There was a mobile game called The Walking Dead Our World. There's an arcade Walking Dead game. They made like an endless runner game for Fear the Walking Dead called Dead Run. Don't forget about the old mobile game Walking Dead No Man's Land, Walking Dead Road to Survival, The Walking Dead Assault, the first like 2012 mobile release based on the comic series. And we've talked about the other one, The Walking Dead Survival Instinct, which, oh my god, was this game just really just a cash grab at the end of the day, trying to capitalize on the popularity of Daryl Dixon during season 3 of The Walking Dead. And the game had a lot of potential in the theory and idea behind the game, like letting you sneak around and stuff, but man, the execution of this game was not at all there. They rushed this thing out the door, and it shows. Oh, and we're not done yet. More recently, there's been The Walking Dead Empires, which essentially, I believe, is a blockchain-powered MMO, which I think might have something to do with either NFTs or cryptocurrencies. I don't know how that stuff works, but I know that a lot of the time they end up being scams, and yeah, so why not, you know, get on the NFT crypto grind and play The Walking Dead Empires, which honestly just looks like a boring survival game. I mean, you can craft some stuff. Yeah, look, there are NFTs. I just found on the website. Own an NFT crafting station to give yourself the ability to create a particular type of in-game item in The Walking Dead Empires world. Place your station on owned land to craft high-quality items for your own use or sell the items to allies. This 100% feels like a scam. I don't know if it actually is, but I don't trust the NFT stuff, and I feel like it's really weird that The Walking Dead just licensed their stuff out for anything. But wait, there's actually more. I know, this is crazy. There's The Walking Dead The Sandbox, which is another cryptocurrency NFT game, which is separate from the other one we just talked about. It's just a different licensed game by the distributor The Sandbox, and it's based on Image Comics The Walking Dead instead. I don't know if they've even like seen the show, because there's like zombified animals named hellhounds, which sounds very much like something out of Call of Duty Zombies. There's also talking skeletons. I don't know what's going on here, but nonetheless, another NFT crypto game. Can you believe it? Like 2 Walking Dead NFT crypto games in one series, like releasing around the same time. I can't believe it. Like, the only thing that would be crazier is if there were like 3 NFT crypto games. And there's another one called The Walking Dead Lands. Does AMC have no shame. Yes, another cryptocurrency NFT game based on AMC's The Walking Dead. It follows some of the storyline stuff that went on to like the sequel series that The Walking Dead did after the show ended. Honestly, I am really surprised with the way that The Walking Dead franchise has been handled when it comes to what's been permitted for video games. It is like there is zero care to the consumers and the fans that have built up the franchise's success. I swear I'm not trying to make this part drag on, but I told myself I'd include every Walking Dead game in this section, and there's just so many. I mean, over the years, there's been a ton of Facebook Walking Dead games. Fortunately, they're not as bad as the NFT ones, but there was Left Behind, Atlanta Run, Chop Shop, Life, and whatever the Vox tie-in was. I didn't even get to all the mobile games because there was like Dead Reckoning, All-Stars, March to War, Casino Slots and Match 3 Tales, Card Trader, Encounter, and Zombie E-Cards. Okay, then remember back in the day when we were like kids, like sometimes for Christmas you'd get those little like AV cable plugins that you could plug into your TV and play like old Pac-Man, and it was really easy to set up and it was pretty inexpensive, so a lot of us were able to just get it as a gift at one point. I'm sure someone knows what I'm talking about, but they made 2 Walking Dead video game that are just plug and play. There's the Walking Dead Zombie Hunter, which comes with a shotgun that you plug into your TV, and then there's the Walking Dead Battleground, which seems to come with the same shotgun, but this time you're a former prison guard, and the first game you're just like trying to save people. And you know what? There's probably a high probability that I'm missing another Walking Dead game just because of how many there are and how hard it is to keep track of all of them, but I don't know. We can argue all day with what other game series are in fact milked, but we have to acknowledge the absurdity that is The Walking Dead right now. Now, we've talked about Guitar Hero pretty extensively on this channel before, so we won't like dive into it too much. You can watch this video if you want to see us talk about Guitar Hero and other similar games, but Guitar Hero is another really good example of this. Actually, Guitar Hero went down in like a blaze of glory, essentially because of the oversaturation that Activision and themselves caused by releasing a new Guitar Hero game not only annually, but also having a ton of different spin-offs, and then also having to compete against other game series like Rock Band after what was the huge hype that the early Guitar Hero games were, even leading into the middle era of the series. As elementary school students turned into middle schoolers and middle schoolers turned into high schoolers, Guitar Hero was just kind of over. The fad had mostly wrapped up in the explosive sense that it originally was, where everybody was talking about Guitar Hero. Everybody was comparing what songs Guitar Hero had to Rock Band, and there was that one kid who had Band Hero. But I mean, look at all of these Guitar Hero games that released in a very short period of time. That's a lot of games, and just a lot of saturation of its own market. There was also games like DJ Hero and Rocksmith, and just the whole music genre was getting really crowded, and by the time Guitar Hero 6 released, just interest was really down on the series. Now, Guitar Hero 6 itself might have been like an okay game, but sales-wise it did not do well, and that marked the end of the Guitar Hero series for a long time, until they like tried something again, and then that also bombed. I think there's still a lot of love for the music rhythm genre though, and that's why we see Fortnite being able to utilize the Rock Band developers and technology to revitalize this genre in a platform, which is really awesome how they've managed to pull this off. And not only is a new era trying this stuff out, but also people from back in the day are like, hey, this is kind of cool. But yeah, Guitar Hero was an awesome game series until it wasn't, until it had burned itself out by just the yearly release, which was essentially the same game with some different songs every time. And you know, how do you beat Through the Fire and Flames after Guitar Hero 3? Like, how do you top that, honestly? Okay, so this next one, we weren't even sure if we really wanted to include it in this video, but it just feels like Minecraft might be one of those games that could be headed in the direction of some of the other games we've talked about in this video so far. I mean, Minecraft was massive. I mean, everyone remembers Minecraft at its big peak back in the 2010s, and then it's like second resurgence at the end of the 2010s, early 2020s. And the question is, with how massive this franchise is and what this franchise is worth, what has Microsoft really done with Minecraft? I mean, we've seen some updates, but really nothing at the scale of what you would expect for a game that has a massive budget behind it and a massive worth. Instead, we've seen Minecraft over-merchandised. We've seen various spin-offs of Minecraft to mostly not that great of quality, or at the very least are fun games, but have very quickly become not so fun. Almost like Minecraft fans aren't smart enough to realize there's not a lot of depth to some of the games that they've made in the spin-off forms. There's apparently a Minecraft movie coming out with Jack Black in it, so we'll see how that goes. And And you know what? It's fine to have a game series that's successful and to do all these different things with an IP, like what Nintendo does with all of their game series, but you can't just completely ignore the main thing that makes the series popular. And while Minecraft does get updates regularly, a lot of fans have kind of pointed out that these updates are not that big or substantial. They're really, really slow and small little new things added in occasionally rather than massive, cool experiences for players to have. Actually, I'm surprised that a lot of the spin-offs that Minecraft has gotten haven't just been released within Minecraft to give that player base an incredible experience. Instead, they're trying to branch out with a lot of games that don't have a whole lot of depth to them. It just seems like when it comes to Minecraft, all of these extracurricular projects always get the priority focus and never Minecraft itself, and I think that's a shame. But at the same time now, Minecraft is owned by Microsoft, the same company that's in charge of Halo, and the same company that's now in charge of Bethesda, and also Activision. What is the future going to actually look like? This is going to be some dystopian thing soon. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against the Microsoft acquisition. I mean, I think Game Pass and stuff's a really cool value, but Microsoft proves itself time and time again that as far as how it manages its studios and like how it leverages the importance of things like timetables is definitely not a priority sometimes. It's going to be an interesting future for Minecraft and the rest of Microsoft's portfolio.
Okay, we gotta talk about Final Fantasy for a second. While, for the most part, the mainline games have always been good with Final Fantasy, there's been some up and downs, and I mean, like, for the most part, they've been pretty solid, and people kind of enjoy every time there's a mainline game. Unless it's an MMO, then, you know, people go off the wall. But that's besides the point. Even that MMO recovered, right? It's pretty popular nowadays. There have been a ton of spin-offs and a ton of sub-series for each individual Final Fantasy release. And it just feels like the amount of games that came out in this franchise is insane. Like, let's say you got your main series game like Final Fantasy VII, right? Pretty popular game. Did you know that the whole Final Fantasy VII part itself includes 11 different titles? And I mean, that does include the remakes and the remakes that are coming up, but there has been 11 games that were just Final Fantasy VII related. And this goes for some of the other series too. Like there's Crystal Chronicles, which has its own sub-series with like a handful of games. There's like Dimensions, there is Dissidia, there's Explorers, there's like a Beat game like spin-off series that also has a couple games. There's a whole sub-series on the Chocobos that releases like farming games. Then there is like dice games, like board games. There's a racing game, like a Mario Kart Chocobo game that just released like 2 years ago. It just seems like they're doing a lot with this franchise. And I mean, obviously it's popular, but like there's so many titles. Most of the people that play the main games probably don't even know about them. And don't even get me started with the mobile games. There's been so many mobile games that are like shut down now even for Final Fantasy. Plus, on top of that, they also have been milking the re-releases. Like, let me read you how many times Final Fantasy 1 has been re-released. We got it in 1987 on the Family Computer, 1989 on the MSX2, then on the NES, then on the Wonderful Swan Color, then on the PlayStation, then on the Game Boy Advance, then on mobile phones, then on the PSP, then on iOS, then on the Windows phones, then on Android, then on iOS, Steam, and Android again, then on the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4. And that's just the first game alone. They even did something called the Final Fantasy Pixel Remastered that would release the first 6 games again. It just seems like they're trying to get Final Fantasy out there as much as possible, and they pump out so much that it just feels like it's been milked a lot. Now, Tomb Raider isn't as milked today as it used to be, because back in the day, it was a mega hit. When the first game came out in 1996, it received massive acclaim. And the following year, the second game released, and the year after that, the third game released, and it was pretty clear that the Tomb Raider franchise was going yearly at that point. Now, the first 3 games were all pretty decently received, but after that, all the games were just kind of middle of the road, and they kept getting worse. And by 2003, which was just 7 years, there was 9 Tomb Raider games that they had pumped out. Now, Core Design, a British studio, was in charge of developing all these games, and they had massive issues with keeping up with the yearly schedule. And the last 3 Tomb Raider games were just really, really bad, culminating with the very last one, Angel of Darkness, which was just so buggy, so rushed, it was completely unfinished. And on top of that, it kind of introduced elements like stealth and stuff, which is weird, because Tomb Raider was known for exploration and puzzle solving. So introducing stealth mechanics, or I think they even introduced RPG elements, was really weird. Now, this game was so badly received that Core Design actually was moved off the project, and Tomb Raider was given given to Crystal Dynamics, which would lead to the first Tomb Raider reboot in 2006, which would give us Tomb Raider Legend, Anniversary, and Underworld. But for some reason, that also was pretty stale pretty quickly, and they released Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light, which was some weird action-adventure spin-off that I absolutely hated back in the day. And Tomb Raider kind of went silent. We didn't get a main title in 5 years, until we got the 2013 reboot, and that has been going strong, and those games are pretty decent. But man, those initial 8 years were crazy. It was insane how much they were milking it. And also, after core design was moved off the project, they would go on to make 2 more weird PSP games before shutting down in 2010. Also, I do want to add here that I did think they were gonna go back to completely milking Tomb Raider in like 2014 through 2015, when they would release like 3 spin-off games in like 2 years, and I was like, what the hell? But they kind of calmed down then, and you know, we've just been getting some mainline games and some remasters, which that's kind of good, and I think that works well for the Tomb Raider franchise.
Okay, Spyro the Dragon's also a really good example of a game series that's been beaten up, chewed up, spit out, and then like forced into some really weird things. Okay, so back in the day, Insomniac Games, who are known for some major hits nowadays, created the Spyro the Dragon series, and they made 3 solid games, pretty much back to back to back. And while initially the games were kind of a slow burn sales-wise, they eventually exploded in popularity and were easily staples of the original PlayStation era. Insomniac Games would later give up the rights to the Spyro franchise. A few other studios would take a crack at trying to recreate the hype that Spyro was, and they really weren't that great of games. They were received pretty poorly. Then there was this Legend of Spyro series, which was like a reboot thing starring Elijah Wood. That was kind of okay for a bit, but it went downhill after a while. And after that, Spyro the Dragon was essentially doomed to a fate that no other gaming IP really deserves: Skylanders. Okay, I get it. Skylanders was an attempt to just do this whole new thing, mixing toys and video games together, and they had a ton of cool characters in mind for this series, but in an attempt to fast forward some brand recognition, Spyro became the mascot of this series, featuring a redesign. And then, while the game sold well and its own aspect was okay, the whole inclusion of Spyro seemed somewhat unnecessary, especially since the first game is called Spyro's Adventure and he's kind of just like a character in the game. Over time, Spyro's appearance and role in these games would be lessened and lessened as he became less important for the Skylanders IP. This game definitely was not for Spyro fans, and while it did foster its own community of people who love Skylanders, it was a real shame that Spyro missed out on any opportunity to maybe, you know, have a new game or something, because he was kind of now stuck with the Skylanders branding. And only recently has Spyro gotten a little bit of a redemption arc with the Reignited trilogy, which was like the first time in decades that Spyro finally felt like the Spyro that a lot of people loved back in the day. But yeah, this dude's been through it all. Now, another game series that I was looking into a bit, but I just don't know enough about to really fully include in this video, was the Street Fighter series. I've seen a lot of people complain that over the years Street Fighter has kind of done this like release system that just seems exhaustive. I don't know how accurate that might be, so if you are more familiar with Street Fighter than I am, maybe let us know what you think in the comments down below. But yeah, it is interesting how a lot of these games have been handled over time.
Just a few months ago, we did a video on the Assassin's Creed titles the world forgot, and that video was about 50 minutes long, and that kind of made me realize how overused the Assassin's Creed franchise is. While the franchise initially started off bi-yearly, they went yearly pretty quickly, and from 2009 all the way through 2015, we would get an Assassin's Creed game every single year. And a lot of these games were just incredibly rushed and buggy. And on top of that, there was DLCs, then obviously there was all the books, the comics started coming, there was different spin-offs. All this would happen within like 6-7 years, and I think like including everything, we're up to like, I want to guess like 25 Assassin's Creed titles, and that's just like video games alone. And I recommend watching our video, even though, you know, there's some mispronounced names in the video, but it's still a pretty good video. We go over like all the spin-offs, all the mobile games, all the DLC that people forgot, and we just managed to fill 50 minutes with like stuff that people don't even remember, because there's so much Assassin's Creed media out there. Plus, I also think the story was hurt by the yearly release cycle. It just became way too complicated way too quickly, and it was just a chore to keep up with all this lore just constantly being released. Like, it started out as this like, you know, battle between some Templars and Assassins, and then it's like this alternate history with interconnected plot lines and like different time frames and timelines. I don't understand the lore, but like, it just seems crazy to me that they would expand this so so quickly on such a large scale. So then after all that, Ubisoft must have realized how milked the Assassin's Creed franchise is and how sick people are getting of it. Because after 2015, they went kind of bi-yearly, then I think there was like one game in 2017, then 2018, but then 2020 and 2023. So they kind of slowed down a little bit, but there still is a lot of Assassin's Creed stuff coming out every year. So maybe 10 years from now we can make another Assassin's Creed Media The World Forgot video. I would recommend watching that because we do explain a lot of the weird, forgotten spin-offs, mobile games, DLCs, all that stuff. We go even through some books and stuff. There was some mispronounced names, but I think the video is still a solid banger.
Okay, this next one's gonna be a little bit more controversial, so if you disagree with me, feel free to voice your opinion. However, there is a lot of people who agree with this opinion, so let's talk about The Last of Us. I gotta say, for a game series that is just 2 games, there's an awful lot of these 2 games. Pretty much in just slightly over the last decade, we've gotten The Last of Us. 1 year later, we got The Last of Us Remastered. Then a few years later, we got The Last of Us Part 2. We then got the remaster of The Last of Us Part 1. A year later, it got a PC port, and then The Last of Us Part 2 was remastered. And that's not even going into like the other things in The Last of Us franchise. I mean, there was a stage play, there was like a Halloween event, and there's of course the TV show, which surprisingly is actually pretty good. And this isn't even a criticism of Naughty Dog or the developers. This is more of a question for Sony. Is this really that consumer friendly to re-release the same game just a couple of years later with a few enhanced things and charge the same price to the people who've already spent their hard-earned money on a game? I don't know. I've always felt like a remaster on a game that's under a couple of years old seems redundant. Just give the people the upgrade. Come on. And you can hype that up instead. I don't know. Okay, I don't know if it's just something about zombie games in general, but let's just talk about Resident Evil also, because in recent years, Resident Evil has been making some really good moves mostly. I mean, Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8, both solid games. They did the whole like remake thing with Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4. But historically speaking, big picture than just these main recent Resident Evil games, there's just been a lot of Resident Evil. And some of the things are not really that great, like Resident Evil Reverse, which apparently came out in 2022 and nobody remembers it. But before that, even in the mid-2000s, Resident Evil was already starting to experience the squeeze of its game series being milked heavily. I mean, there was Resident Evil Survivor, there was Code Veronica, Resident Evil Survivor 2 Code Veronica, Resident Evil Gaiden. There was Dead Aim, Outbreak, Outbreak File 2, Deadly Silence, The Umbrella Chronicles, The Dark Side Chronicles, The Mercenaries 3D, Operation Raccoon City, and Umbrella Corps. I mean, if you thought Resident Evil Reversed was forgettable, what about Resident Evil Resistance, which came out just a few years earlier in 2020 and was also a multiplayer game that was abandoned? It also wasn't very good. It was supposed to like pit 4 players to have to work cooperatively together. It was just a weird thing. They've always tried to like launch something multiplayer alongside some of these newer Resident Evil games that actually are received well. But man, Resident Evil has been through it. And we're not even talking about the movies that range in quality pretty dramatically. But hey, at least Resident Evil has been kind of on the up and up. There has been some good games between some of the weird multiplayer things that they've been doing, so fans have things to look forward to. But man, Resident Evil does have one of those really long track records. I'm happy that Resident Evil nowadays has like a little bit of a formula that works for it and people get really excited with it, especially with Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8 Village. Things are looking up, but there's still all this other stuff that keeps coming out in the Resident Evil IP that's always, you know, a little bit excessive maybe. Okay, you guys remember back to the Kinect era? What a crazy time that was, where all these motion games are really trying to come out and capitalize on, you know, the hype that all of these motion consoles had. There was the Kinect, there was the PlayStation Move, and of course the Wii had already been out for many years at that point. A lot of the games that came out during this time didn't really last into series that continued to be released for too much longer, except one, Just Dance. Somehow Just Dance is still around to this day. It sees yearly releases, which means a lot of people are still buying them, and I gotta say, I'm really surprised that somehow Just Dance managed to graduate into what is essentially the annual release model that a lot of older games still continue to do, like Call of Duty and like any sports series like Madden. I really thought at some point Ubisoft would have pivoted Just Dance into like a regular live service model with new packs released regularly, but sales must be good enough that the game series continues to get a brand new release every single year, even if they have like a cringy E3 presentation. Now, what I find is very interesting is that the first Just Dance game came out all the way back in 2009, and we would see multiple Just Dances release every single year until 2016 when they started just doing one Just Dance release every year. Just Dance 2020 was the last Just Dance game to release on the Nintendo Wii. The Wii! The 14-year-old console was still getting games. What's even more interesting is that Just Dance 2020 did not release on the Wii U. Like, Ubisoft was like, nah, the Wii U's dead. But they still decided to release it on the older console, the Wii, besides like the Switch, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. Yeah, you could dance to Old Town Road on your Nintendo Wii if you wanted to. Also, it's worth noting that Just Dance never had like a PC release, but they did release it on the Stadia that year as well. Now, it does seem like with the newer Just Dance games, more recently, they've been kind of pivoting into a more live service model with DLC releases, but they still have the big annual release, so I don't know. I just think Just Dance is such an interesting specimen to look at, but yeah, I mean, the game itself's probably fine. Nowadays, it uses an app to connect and stuff, but yeah, I only know like one person who plays Just Dance with their whole family on a regular basis, and I've kind of been worried about them ever since they told me that. And then obviously, the big game that everyone probably was expecting us to talk about at some point in this video, Call of Duty. And this one is just like a lot to unpack, so Luke and I had to kind of talk about it directly to figure out like what is Call of Duty doing and where did it go like into this formulaic way where people immediately think of Call of Duty when we're talking about milked video game franchises. In general, when it comes to topics like this, I feel like the annual release very easily can make a game feel like it's being milked, and Call of Duty, of course, has been doing the annual release for a very long time. It's hard to pinpoint where Call of Duty really started to feel like it was being squeezed and milked. Nowadays, with Modern Warfare 3, which definitely felt like a very unfinished or not intended to be full game experience, you definitely feel it more now than other years, but sometimes I feel like the games feel decently polished enough or decently original enough where they don't just immediately get classified into this like milked category. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but like I gotta say, like, when a Call of Duty is bad, I immediately feel like this has been milked, because like we didn't need this, right? And then it's like they just did this because of the yearly schedule.
I don't know what's wrong with me though. It's like when I get real exhausted and fatigued of Call of Duty, I tell myself, you know what? This is the last Call of Duty I buy for a while. I'm not gonna buy it.
Yeah, the last one you buy for a year.
Yeah, and then the new Call of Duty comes out, no matter what, I'm like, well, you know what? Like, my friends are playing it. I might as well just buy it and play it. And that's fine, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, I'm getting my money's worth out of it, like, even if I only played for a month or two. But, you know, like, what they did with Modern Warfare 3 really felt like corners were cut. And I think a lot of people can feel that way.
Honestly, that was the last straw. Like, that was really, like, that was the ultimate milker. Milker?
But I feel like people probably... But I feel like, what does the milker mean? Wait.
Okay, go ahead.
I feel like this isn't the first time people have felt like Call of Duty was becoming a series that was milked. Like, we saw it, people started having that commentary about Call of Duty right after the original glory days of like the, you know, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 2 era, like right into Ghosts. And I just wonder if it's like, because of the yearly release, no matter what, there's gonna be like this like scrutiny, because I mean they are, you know, pumping out games way more frequently than any competitor.
Yeah, but I also have to say, like, it might also feel that way because there's like two sub-series they keep milking. Like, they keep milking the Modern Warfare series and they keep milking the Black Ops series. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but then when we get a game that's neither of those, like Vanguard, it's Vanguard.
Right, then we got Vanguard, which is also bad, which also feels like it got milked because, like, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. Maybe it is because the difference in engine isn't that big anymore every year, so the games feel very similar. And
we've seen, like, they used to do like this cycle. It was like very popular and commonly known that like it was Infinity Ward and then Treyarch, and they would like switch off since Call of Duty 3 or Call of Duty 2. They shifted to like a 3 developer studio thing for a second, and then they've now shifted kind of again where it's like all the studios are simultaneously working on multiple Call of Duties at a time, with like one studio kind of taking on the most work. But like, we've seen Treyarch work on the last 2 Call of Duties besides the potential 3rd Call of Duty game that they've been working on themselves. It makes it feel like it's less these other studios working on their own projects, and it's one massive effort to make a Call of Duty game every year, and I think that makes it feel more milked than anything else.
No, I agree definitely, because like at that point, like the ideas and the variety and the different styles each studio had kind of gets lost, because it becomes like this big like mesh.
I mean, Modern Warfare 2 and 3, they literally were, intentional, but at the same time, like, it's the same game. It's just, you can go on Modern Warfare 3 and play the Modern Warfare 2 maps.
You don't remember? It's the first true sequel?
That was such a dumb thing that they said. That irritates me beyond. How is Modern Warfare 3 the first sequel in Call of Duty? The first true sequel? I'm hoping you show the headline there, but
yeah. No, I'm hiding it.
Don't hide the headline, dude. So I don't know what the path forward for Call of Duty is unless they choose to take like a break. But at the same time, taking a break almost shows weakness on the Call of Duty brand, if that makes sense. So many people are used to that being the annual release. So I understand why they wouldn't want to do that, but I also feel like they're just pumping the same thing out over and over again. And while we might be seeing another Black Ops game this year, and I do have to say, I really liked Cold War.
Cold War was amazing. Yeah.
The story was good. Zombies was a little different, but still overall was okay. And the multiplayer, it's still modern multiplayer, but at the very least, there was like a lot of different game types, a lot of fun things to do in there. People can get more multiplayer focused. People might have different opinions on like the gunplay. But at the end of the day, like there was like, it felt like one of the last Call of Duties to have like the full package of experiences that you can have. The Call of Duty Modern Warfare reboot also was pretty good though.
Well, yes, and it's like, it feels like the cycle within the games where like, it'll be like a downhill trend and then some good stuff will come out, then another downhill trend, and some good stuff, downhill trend. So I feel like it's hard to say, but I think the yearly trend, it'll just continue and we'll, just see ups and downs.
It's like they want to be a live service, right? So badly without doing the like free to play route where they just update everything for free for all the players. Like they still want to charge that annual $70, and it burns a whole lot worse when it's like Modern Warfare 3 and like the short campaign that's just reused assets from previous Call of Duty games. Campaigns have always reused assets, but it just felt a little bit more of like a stab this time around.
But like talking about yearly franchises that get milked, what about all those sports games like Madden or FIFA?
Like they must have the Madden fan base like just like tied around a finger or something. Like I don't even know what that metaphor is.
I know what you mean, and I think it's gambling related, because you can keep opening the new packs every year. The same happens in FIFA. The same happens in Madden. You know what I mean? The Ultimate Team stuff. That's where the people get really hooked, and that's what the people do every single year, and they'll open a ton of new packs and then lose all the packs a year later.
That is insane, and I think Madden only more recently started doing the packs. Not like I think FIFA does it more aggressively.
FIFA has been doing it for a while, and yeah, it's a big part.
The thing with Madden that's so weird to me is that people just keep buying the new game every year, and the games are literally exactly the same with a few minor changes and then the roster update. But they can do a roster update.
Right, but the feature, they take out features, right? And then the feature is gone for like 2 or 3 years, and they put the feature back in, acting like it's new. They have done that too. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, you used to be able to do like franchises co-op online or something like that, and those went away. They'll probably bring it back in a couple of years. And there's just like a lot of things with the way that the Madden games are. I don't need to over-explain this. I feel like people are smart enough to realize like Madden is a series that just gets pumped out regularly.
It is insane how many sports games started released on the yearly. We got Madden, we got FIFA, we got NBA. Then I think like the golf games also come out every year. There's like, I'm forgetting.
And then there's some that skip a couple of years.
Right, the NHL games come out every year too.
Do they still?
Yeah, they do.
Whoa, that's insane.
So like all these sports games come out on a yearly cycle. So maybe we don't have it as bad with Call of Duty. At least like there's some different settings.
It could be worse with Call of Duty, that's for sure. But I do feel like Madden could also easily pivot away from the yearly release and do like a big yearly update, and it'd be fine. But they know they can charge $70, so why don't they? And people keep buying it, so they're not going to stop.
Yeah, okay, the way I say it, it's easy to milk the sports fans too, because I think a lot of people who play the sports games, they only play the sports games.
Oh.
You know. Hey, yeah. Wait, that's what you said.
I didn't say it.
But no, I think they just only buy the sports games. So to them, like, spending $70 once a year is probably not that bad, right? Like,
right. It's like the same thing with Call of Duty.
They're not variety gamers, I guess.
Okay, so this next one, I wasn't sure if we should talk about it, but it's such a meme that we can't not talk about it. But Skyrim, just Skyrim. We don't even have to talk about the whole franchise, but Skyrim itself, for releasing in 2000 and 2011, has been milked, re-released multiple times, ported onto multiple platforms, and I think it's incredible. It's incredible, just like how memey this whole thing became.
I mean, like at some point, Todd Howard memed about it releasing on the fridge, right? I think that's what he said. That was pretty funny.
Can you still play it on a fridge?
I mean, with xCloud, you can probably play anything on the fridge.
That's true, yeah.
You probably have a good point with Skyrim, but there's another game that's similarly been milked in a very similar sense with like all the re-releases. That's Resident Evil 4. There have been so many Resident Evil 4 re-releases as well.
Oh yeah, we kind of talked about some of the Resident Evil games already, but yeah, Resident Evil 4 did see like a lot of straight ports, right? Like it wasn't full on remakes until recently.
Yeah, the last one was the remake. That was like an HD remastered, but like I think like it re-released on iOS, on the Wii. So it came out GameCube, PlayStation 2 era, right? Then it came out on the Wii, then iOS, then on something called the Zibo in Brazil, which is like some obscure console. I don't know. Then PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, then Android, then PlayStation 4, Xbox One, then Nintendo Switch, and then there was a VR release too on the Oculus.
Resident Evil 4 specifically. Resident Evil, we talked about it, already has been milked.
Right.
With all of the little like spin-offs and side things and multiplayer games. But Resident Evil 4.
And Skyrim.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That one and Skyrim together, they definitely get like a bonus. Because Skyrim was on the 360 PS3, then it saw a Switch release. At the same time, they did the special edition, but the Switch version wasn't the special edition. But then they did the anniversary edition, and I think the Switch got the anniversary version also. And then the anniversary version came out on like the new generation of consoles. But then after that release, then they put the old special edition on Game Pass, and it's like this whole confusing thing.
There's also a VR version.
There's a VR version too. I forgot all about that also.
I wonder if Skyrim and Resident Evil are the like most re-released games in history.
It's got to be up there. I think maybe Resident Evil 4 with what you're saying, because I forgot about the Wii and the Wii U. Skyrim skipped the Wii and Wii U.
But also like, and I talked about this earlier, there's some Final Fantasy games who have been released on like 10 different devices over the years. Like, it's all, Final Fantasy might also take the crown here. I don't know. Someone count.
What about Grand Theft Auto 5? Does this count? Does GTA 5 count? There used to be like a regular flow of Grand Theft Auto games releasing on a, like 3 to 4 year cycle. I mean, they were yearly for a little while even. It was an annual series back in the day, but then after like things slowed down for a little bit. Nobody expected GTA 5 to go from 2013 to 2025. I don't think anybody expected that.
Let me ask you a question, because I want you to clarify this. Do you mean GTA 5 or do you mean GTA Online?
It used to just be the one game.
Right, but like in a creative sense.
But now they are divorced mostly now.
Because I wish they would have milked GTA 5, like the campaign more, and I wish we would have gotten DLC and we would have seen more of those characters. But we sadly didn't, because GTA Online was milked so heavily.
Right. And I don't think anybody expected it to be this long between releases, but also remember GTA 5, there hasn't been any new story DLC added to it, but it's still been re-released, from the 360 to the Xbox One, and then again to the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X era, and the PC port. And I think that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, like, it is a very lucrative game. And I mean, they do content updates quite regularly, from what I can tell.
Right, and that's why I want to talk about this one more at this point of the video, because it's not the same type of milking, right? It's obviously not a dead series, right? It's not a meme. I mean, more than people being like, wow, this game has just been on for a long time. I mean, it's one of the earliest live service games, you could argue, right? GTA Online started in 2013, continued all the way on.
There's a bunch of PC games that are older, I guess.
I guess for console, that are available on console, because GTA first came out on console.
Well, yeah, but it didn't have online at the beginning either, right?
Just for the first like month though, yeah. It had it by like the holiday season. But yeah, and then they did the Xbox One version and PS4 version.
Where they added first-person mode, right?
Yeah, and you could transfer your character. So then, like, I think that counts as, like, the first, like, live... I mean, I don't think they started doing regular content updates with, like, new things until a little bit later on.
Yeah, it took a while for heists and stuff to be added, right? Like, that wasn't there at the beginning. Or not that many, I guess.
I don't think there was heists in online at the beginning. I think it was the last update that the 360 and PS3 got. Were the like 4 heists.
I remember the early days of GTA Online where it felt kind of empty.
And now it feels a little too full.
Yeah, it's very full.
Like you walk in and like someone just guns you down with like a gun that they might have paid real money for. And like you don't even stand a chance. Or like someone will just drive by in like an armored vehicle. And like, what do you do?
And I also have to say like every time I play GTA Online, I try to play it. It's like the loading times are still so long. Like there's like, I'll try to load into a race. The race will be 5 minutes, but I spend 10, 15 minutes loading into the game, and I'm like, this is not worth it.
It's not that bad.
It is. It is.
All right. I don't know.
It is. I swear.
Okay, I have another game, Pokemon. This is a more controversial one. I don't think Pokemon's milked to death, but I think Pokemon is experiencing the squeeze. I think it's always experienced the squeeze, but I think because of a quality dip in recent years, people are feeling it a lot more. But I think like the release flow of Pokemon games is approximately the same as it's always been, more or less it feels like. There's always been weird Pokemon spinoffs and other things that have existed. I mean, Hey You Pikachu existed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Pokemon just has so much potential that they can do to like make content that I think that might. I mean, they obviously have a big flow of Pokemon games constantly coming out, but it definitely, you feel it now with the quality of some of the mainline games recently.
Yeah, I instantly have two thoughts on that. The first one being like, and I said this for Call of Duty, like once the quality dips, the milking becomes more obvious or like more apparent. You know what I mean? Like people get more sensitive to it because they feel like ripped off.
Yeah, why did they spend more time working on it?
Yeah, and then the second thing is, it's hard to say it's being milked because it is the biggest media franchise in the world. And like, what do you expect? You know what I mean?
Nobody would bat an eye if like Disney was pumping out some stuff. You know what I mean? A lot, but
well, people do complain about all the TV shows Disney is pumping out too, and you know that's getting milked too. The MCU was milked heavily.
Yeah, I forgot that was even Disney. I mean, I knew it, but I forgot. Yeah, I think there was a more conscious shift with the Pokemon fan base around the time when Sword and Shield came out, and people were kind of disappointed with like the quality of like what the 3D world looked like. Kind of looked like a 3DS game that was upscaled. I mean, there were some cool parts about Sword and Shield. I think that some of the criticism about Sword and Shield was definitely kind of like blown out of proportion, and then there was a whole like Pokemon Dexit thing that was a thing for a minute that people are still mad about now, rightfully so. You know, coming after Sword and Shield, it was like Legends of Arceus, which was very ambitious and a very cool concept that could have really, really used a little more fleshing out and a little bit more to it. It was a great experience, but like it felt like they just stopped once they felt like their game hit like a 7 out of 10 mark, rather than like pushing to like really make it like one of the best experiences. And then we had like the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, Diamond, Brilliant Pearl, whatever the
Brilliant Pearl, Shining Diamond or something. Yeah, that's the other way around.
BD Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Okay, I got it. Those were a disaster. Those weren't even made by a studio that's ever made a game before. They just ported code. We've talked about this before, and I think that really just like icked a lot of people.
But we'll see what they're doing with this new one, because it looks like we're only getting one version, right?
Right, it's another Legends game, which is a mainline game.
You know, maybe they improve on it, and maybe like that'll be the new concept. Like we get a dual game every 2 years, then like a single game.
Yeah, I think this game actually has like a longer development cycle than what we've seen in the last couple of years when they've like squished all of these releases back to back to back. I didn't even talk about Scarlet and Violet, but it was the same stuff. Just
I guess it's too early to say. If the next one sucks and like, you know, it's kind of underwhelming, I think then like, you know, we can maybe say it's been milked, like at least the game side.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. I mean, there's like this expectation of what you think you should deserve from a game. And I think just Pokemon being the biggest video game franchise, right? Or the biggest media franchise over, like even bigger than that, right?
Bigger than Star Wars, bigger than Hello Kitty, bigger than anything.
Right. How much it sells, the fact that it still doesn't have voice acting, something so simple, where games that sell a fraction of that have full voice acting, is surprising. I feel like, you know, you play a game like Persona and you're just like, well, and then you go and try to play Pokemon, you're like, why does this like...
Why do I have to read?
Yeah, like why do I have to read? That's so good, dude. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they can at least do partial voice acting for something. Like, it feels weird.
Maybe I can see why they haven't done it. Because at the end of the day, it's a kid's game. And Persona is not a kid's game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but don't you think, like, some kids playing Pokemon can't read? I remember getting lost in Pokemon Yellow because I couldn't read my instructions.
Okay, here's the thing. If a kid can't read, learn to read, then play Pokemon. I don't know, dude. Like,
or just put voice acting in the game.
Yeah, but they have to localize so many voice acting, too. So like for all these countries, right?
Yeah, but Persona does it.
Not for all languages.
Well, then just localize it for the top 5 languages spoken.
Okay.
They can afford it.
I mean, no, they can afford it for sure.
Like, a new Pokemon game sells competitively to a Call of Duty, more than a Call of Duty release sometimes. Like, I mean, Scarlet and Violet, I think, sold, like, the same as, like, Cold War did. And Cold War was, like, the best-selling Call of Duty game in a long time because of the quarantine and stuff. Like, more people were playing games. They have the money. If you think about, like, these games have the same budget and you put them side by side, one of the games definitely looks a lot lower budget than the other game. And I know that there's Switch hardware limitations, but, I mean, we know that the Switch is capable of voice acting at the very least and better visuals.
It is weird too, because like usually you think like the later you get into a hardware generation, like the Switch, like the better the developers get at like making the games look good, right? Because like that's how it usually works, right? Like a more, and like the Pokemon games, like it feels like they've like, been dipping every time. They're getting worse at it, you know. Because like visually, I felt like Sword and Shield was better than what's the other one, Scarlet and Violet.
You thought so? I thought the other way around. I think visually the world, since they actually did the full open world type thing with Scarlet and Violet, I liked the world. I just felt like the performance was the problem. Like frame rate drops and like pop-in textures and stuff like that.
Oh, maybe that's what I mean too. I guess you're right. Yeah.
Artistically, if you're meaning artistically, though, I do think Scarlet and Violet still was a little bit better than Sword and Shield.
Yeah, maybe I meant performance. Maybe that was the right word, not what I said.
Fair enough, fair.
And then earlier, I was trying to record this part for myself, but I don't know. I'm like very confused on these games. But I know you're a big Sonic fan. And I know your favorite Sonic game is Sonic 06, and you'll defend that opinion to the death.
That's crazy. You're saying some crazy things right now. Okay, what were you going to ask me?
So I want to ask you the hard-hitting questions. Do you think the Sonic franchise that's been keeping Sega alive for the last billion years is milked to death as a hardcore Sonic fan?
Almost, but Sonic's not dead yet. So it's like, I can't say it's been milked to death, but it's gotten close. I mean, the Dreamcast alone was like staying alive on Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2.
But those were good games. I gotta give that to them, you know?
Yeah, they were good Sonic games for its time. I do think there was a period of time after the Dreamcast died and Sega wasn't doing consoles where Sonic was like the main source of income. And they had to like really go all out. And they went all out. And they utilized Sonic to this multiple games a year type thing. And yeah, it was pretty milked. Like when we're getting into like Sonic Free Riders for the Kinect, you know, coming off the heels of Sonic 06 being a disaster. Like, it's just surprising how little they cared after Sonic 06 released. Like, they never went back and, like, fixed the game or anything. And then they would just continue to release, like, mediocre Sonic games. Some people liked Sonic Unleashed. I hated it. Just could not stand the Werehog levels at all.
I played it for a little bit. I didn't even get to the Werehog levels, remember?
Yeah, you played for, like, 5 minutes. I remember watching you play that.
Got to Crease and I was like, I can't do this.
So, yeah, I mean, I do think Sonic has been milked quite a bit. Sonic Boom. Yeah. No, Sonic.
I mean, there's TV shows too, right? And they've like there was TV shows in the 90s. There was TV shows like more recently, and like now there's the movies. Which I mean, the movies. I saw the first movie and I thought it was good. I actually enjoyed it. It was what was it like? I remember there was like no superhero movies that year, and then all the headlines were like, Sonic is the best
superhero movie of the year.
Yeah, the best superhero movie of the year or something. I was like, oh, okay.
Of 2020.
I guess so.
That was crazy.
I just remember that. But
nobody expected that.
But yeah, I feel like they still make bad Sonic games like on the regular. And like I don't know, just keep releasing bad stuff. And I mean, I know there's hardcore Sonic fans that, like you, who really enjoy these.
That's crazy. I do think in recent years they've slowed down a little bit and they've tried to do more polished things. There was a little bit of a gap before Sonic Forces came out.
Yeah, but Sonic Forces looks so goofy too.
Yeah, it wasn't a good game. It wasn't that good. But now they're I don't know. After Sonic Generations, like things slowed down a little bit and they decided to start like putting out more specific things. Sonic Frontiers, a lot of people liked it. A lot of people thought it was more polished than other experiences. I don't know. I was tired of the open world formula in so many games that I just didn't want to experience it in Sonic. I really gave that game a chance. I really wanted to like it. I just couldn't get into it. I don't know. They're remaking Sonic Generations and adding a Shadow the Hedgehog arc, which actually looks kind of cool.
Have they been milking Shadow too? Kind of, right?
I think they're milking Sonic by using Shadow. This sounds really weird out of context. But yeah, like I think with Shadow the Hedgehog,
Using Sonic and milking Shadow. Wait, you said the other word. They're milking Sonic and using Shadow. Can someone clip that?
no, not like that. I mean like they use like Shadow the Hedgehog as like a big selling point to try to sell more Sonic games, and that's what I mean when I say like they use Shadow to milk Sonic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, now it makes sense. Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
and yeah, I don't know, like it's just so weird with the state of Sonic. I really wish there was like a big refresh. I feel like fans know what a Sonic game needs to be good, and just Sega hasn't made that. They've just kind of chased trends and have done some other weird things, but like they haven't just like made, you know, a true to form Sonic game. I don't know how to explain. Like if they would just do kind of what they did with Sonic Generations in a new experience and new maps, maybe a couple of playable characters, but not, you know, make it weird like Sonic Forces, I think they'd be fine. They'd have some good games. They just need to like flesh it out and make like a bigger experience than like a 6-hour game, and not just like chase trends like they chased Mario Galaxy with Sonic Lost World, like they chased Breath of the Wild with Sonic Frontiers. Like just do something, you know, like straight to the point and just make a Sonic game. I don't know.
It's funny because like it does still seem like Sonic is always just chasing Mario. Like after all these years, like after.
Yeah, well, except recently he chases Link in Zelda.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, but that's like an extension of Mario, right? They're like homies. I think. I like to imagine that when Zelda and Mario see each other, they like dap each other up.
Like but, they have like a secret handshake.
Yeah,
They're just like.
Yeah, that's what I like to imagine. So like it kind of counts. It's within the family, you know.
Right. It's in the family. Dude, when are they gonna do a Mario game starring Vin Diesel?
That'd be crazy.
Now we're cooking, dude.
Luigi's Mansion 4 with Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel is Luigi. How about a Luigi's Mansion movie starring Vin Diesel, but it's not animated, live action?
Yeah, he just has a green cap. It's not even like the Luigi cap, it's just like a green baseball cap.
It's just a green hat, yeah, and blue overalls.
And he's a mechanic, and he likes to ride cars.
And he's looking for his brother Mario. Dude, we're cooking.
Actually,
why hasn't Hollywood hired us to be the screenwriters, directors of
everything? Like, we can't do it all. Direct, write, act.
Yeah. Just give us the budget and we'll make something.
Yeah, I mean, sure, we'll sign something by the end of the month if they give us the budget, yeah.
We'll get it by the end of the month. Give us Vin Diesel for 1 month and we'll make it happen. I don't know, I felt kind of good about this video. I feel like we covered a lot. There's a couple of other games we could have talked about. Battlefield, some people are going to think it's milked. I don't feel like they release enough games. I just think they make bad games.
Yeah, they barely. I wish there was some Battlefield games, actually.
Battlefield can get its act together still. It's not too late for it.
I mean, the last season apparently is really good. They went back on some of the changes that people didn't like.
It's not like a doomed franchise like Halo.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Like Halo, there's no coming back. Battlefield can still make a comeback.
Right, but like you can't milk Halo anymore. It's so dead.
Yeah, you have to have like a good game to milk it from. Like you can't. Like they've been trying to survive off of what was popular with Halo years ago, and with their new games, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a badge of honor to even be considered milked, because like, at least they're like relevant.
Yeah, relevant enough. They can't even put a spin-off Halo game out anymore because the main series is so bad. Do they even do multiplayer stuff still? Just like playlist updates with Forge maps?
I think the season ended, but now it's like playlist updates and sometimes content, maybe like a Forge map. I don't know. I honestly haven't booted that game up in almost a year. I think next month is my 1-year anniversary of not playing Halo.
Oh wow, congratulations.
We gotta go. Hopefully the Outback Steakhouse is open by then. You know, that opens up close to us and we go there to celebrate. Okay,
yeah. There's not an Outback Steakhouse. There's that one close, the Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah,
Texas
I got
Roadhouse.
confused.
Dude, I know you're so excited. You've been talking about this for like 6 months, this Texas Roadhouse opening up, dude.
It's not like the sign, like Texas Roadhouse coming. I've been like checking the news.
I remember you're looking up like the what was it, like not the licenses, but
like how much the
permits.
Yeah, the permits.
You're looking at the permits to see when they're gonna build the Texas Roadhouse in the parking lot over at that.
Yeah, I figured
area.
out they pay like 1.9 million in permits or like property tax to build it there.
Oh my goodness.
This is gonna be good. I love it. They better sponsor us one day. I want a Texas Roadhouse sponsor.
Dude, Texas Roadhouse sponsor and a Costco sponsor?
Insane.
Dude, you'd be set for life, dude. Not financially, but you'd be just happy for the rest of your life. You would feel achieved.
They probably make more money.
No, I feel good about this. Do you feel good about the video?
Yeah, it's been good.
Cool. Well, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys like, and that tells the algorithm that you want to see more content like this. Also, subscribe if you're new. For watching on TV, hitting the subscribe button, I know it's like 2 extra clicks, but it does go a long way for us, and it tells YouTube to like give you our content.
Use code RocketSlove at GamerSubs. For 10% off.
Oh yeah, Gamer Sups. If you guys gotta fill up your Gamer Sups, I've been drinking Brand Risk lately, and it tastes really good. Really, really good. Probably my top 3 favorite flavors. It's like a peach flavor. So yeah, no, definitely stock up on your Gamer Sups with our code because they give us a really, really generous cut. So you get your stuff, but you're also supporting our channel directly when you use our code, like in a pretty substantial way. So that's cool too.
They've been very awesome to us. They're very nice.
And then also, it was a little bit of a different video we put up, but we did this huge retrospective on every single James Bond video game, and we worked really hard on it. We knew it probably wouldn't resonate as well, but if you've ever liked James Bond, either the movies or the games, go check out that video. Give it a chance. I'm really proud of it, so I think you guys might like it too. So I just wanted to throw that out there too.
That video's good. Go watch it.
Yeah, go watch that or watch something else. Whatever YouTube recommends. It doesn't matter. You can watch whatever you guys want. All right. We'll see you guys next time though with a new video.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.